Books presents an unabridged recording of At Play in the Fields of the Lord by Peter Matthiessen, narrated by George Guidell. This book is copyrighted 1966 by Peter Matthiessen. This recording is copyrighted 1992 by Recorded Books. The author begins with the following quote from Hermann Hesse. "The way to innocence, to the uncreated and to God leads on, not back to the wolf or to the child, but ever further into sin, ever deeper into human life." And now, At Play in the Fields of the Lord.
In the jungle, during one night in each month, the moths did not come to lanterns. Through the black reaches of the outer night, so it was said, they flew toward the full moon. So it was said. He couldn't recall where he had heard it, or from whom. It had been somewhere on the rivers of Brazil. He had never watched the lanterns at the time of the full moon. When he remembered, it was always the dark of the moon or beyond the tropics. Yet the idea of the moths in the high darkness, straining upward, filled him with longing. And at these times he would know that he had not found what he was looking for, nor come closer to discovering what it was. Across the table, the whore, uncomprehending, searched his face for a clue to something, anything at all. "¿Qué pasa?" the whore said, looking away. She expected and received no answer. "¿Qué pasa?" the whore sighed. The taverna called La Concepcion sat back from the mud street, behind a yard of beaten earth and mango trees. Most of its customers sat at wooden tables in the yard. The loud radio competed with a dice game, in which the dice cups were banged down as violently as possible upon the table, accompanied by hoarse shouting from the player. This game was a constant from noon to dawn. The radio, with the tumult of the gambling, was more than a match for the voices of men, dogs, and roosters, which, mixing freely in the yard, fought for a hearing. Drinking in silence at his table, he felt cut off from all the rest, as they were cut off from one another. Men moved like shadows in this cave of noise, while outside them, outside the glare, stirring the black leaves, hung the great, hungry silence of the jungle. The people clung like moths to the wan light. "¿Qué pasa?" the whore said again. The alcohol which at first had bathed his skin in a glow of peace now made him restless, and his restlessness made her nervous. He reached out and took her hand, and she subsided. It was still early, and somehow he would have to pass the rest of the evening, for he had slept most of the day. He had had this woman, quietly and quickly, and because he made no more of it than it was, the woman liked him. She tried to communicate her own loneliness and even a haggard femininity. He had listened politely, but now his silence had defeated her, and she would go. "Hasta luego, hombre," the woman murmured. She was still searching his face like someone awaiting word. "Hasta luego," he said. So long as he kept moving, he would be all right. For men like himself, the ends of the earth had this great allure. that one was never asked about a past or future, but could live as freely as an animal, close to the gut, and day by day by day. Chapter 1. At 4 miles above sea level, Martin Quarrier, on silver wings, was pierced by celestial light. To fall from such a height, he thought, would be like entering heaven from above. The snow peaks of the Andes burst from clouds which hid the earth, sparkling in the sun like gates of paradise, and the blue dome of the mountain sky was as pure as the Lord's pane. Where the clouds parted, it was true, dark lakes reflected wild, demonic gleams. But the red roofs of the villages on the lone road traversing the Sierra were signals of sane harmonies, goodwill to men. Quarrier, at his window on the firmament, could barely restrain a warble of pure joy. Instead, he whistled tunelessly and hummed until his wife in the seat behind him told him that he sounded like a kettle. He stroked the head of his little boy, whose nose was pressed into the fog made by their breaths upon the glass. The snow fields had scarcely passed from view when Billy Quarrier first thought he saw wild Indians and jaguars and anacondas. "Look, Pa! Right down there!" "Where does he come by such outlandish notions?" Martin turned around and gazed affectionately at his big wife. His wife amused him. Her pale face looked lye-scrubbed, and a sour expression camouflaged native handsomeness, as if this character, like her humor, was something to be suppressed. To cheer her, he made his joke about a heavenly descent, and laughed when she would not laugh. He said, "Now, sweetheart, there are jaguars and anacondas here. That's all." Kneeling on his seat, hands resting on its top, he loomed above her, anxious to interest her in all the information with which he had prepared himself. But she was not an easy person to reach out to, and he drew back a little when her hand dropped out of habit to tug down the hem of her dress. "Many of these tribes consider the anaconda their ancestor," he said. "They think their shaman is a jaguar. That he can become a jaguar at night." Hazel shifted fretfully. "Look at him kneeling on his seat. Why does he kneel like that?" "Shamans," she said. "That's why the Lord has sent us here, to rescue these poor heathens from such darkness." When he smiled vaguely, turning away, she said, "You shouldn't have filled your own head with such fiddle-faddle, let alone an innocent child. All he can think about are savages and these awful snakes and jungle animals." She tried to smile at him, to show that she was not quite serious, but she couldn't. The airplane had made her feel much too upset. Nevertheless, it seemed appropriate that they should undergo some sacrifice and even hardship in the performance of their Christian duty. And she was therefore content to enter a terrain so remote from the green, bright plains of North Dakota, where Satan, as her father said, had been run clean across the country. The high peaks of the Cordillera fell away, marching down the southern sky toward Tierra del Fuego. The plane lost altitude. Brown wastelands of the alpine tundra surged in the clouds.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.